I noticed her as she walked into the diner, tall, somewhere around 5 feet 8 inches or 5 foot. Hard to judge since she was standing and I was sitting at the counter, eating my country boy burger, and somewhere around 40 years old. Apparently, she had placed a takeout order, so she was standing right by the door next to the cash register while I sat on the bar. Despite her age, she was slim like a college girl, wearing skinny jeans and a tight t-shirt, showing off her not quite flat chest, plus a parka-style coat. She had long hair, about to her elbows, which would have looked better if it weren't for the bangs making it less attractive. Her hair was a nice russet color, but the roots on part of her hair indicated that the color had come from Clairol. It was cold outside. The Weather Channel's Winter Storm Hunter had dropped an ice storm on us, followed by snow the previous night and morning. The storm had already lasted halfway through Saturday afternoon when the power went out at 4:57 p.m. Now, a few minutes after noon the next day, the power was still out in most of the county, and naturally it became a major topic of conversation. What had shut off the power? There were more rumors than facts. A car hit a pole on Driftwood Drive. No, someone hit a substation at Highway 52 and Miller Creek Road. No, a power line fell in Lee County. So, deciding to flirt. Even though she had a very noticeable wedding set on her left arm, I said, "Maybe your husband is working on restoring power to my house right now." She laughed, saying, "No, that's not his job." Yeah, it wasn't that easy, but what goes around comes around. Well, if he's at work until 5 today, maybe you can take me back to your place to keep me warm until 4? She laughed again and said, "You do realize he's already outside in his car waiting for me, right?" I looked out the window and sure enough, there was some guy sitting in a car with a middle school-aged kid. "I guess I'm totally out of it today, huh?" I said. "Yeah, but it was a nice try." Still, I noticed the glint in her eyes. She liked that I was flirting with her. She was checking me out and I was checking her out and I knew I looked good enough. I'm 44 years old. I still have a short army haircut. I'm tall with broad shoulders and a waist smaller than my chest. If her husband hadn't gotten out of the car, I'd have had a real chance. "So, is he working tomorrow?" I asked. She smiled, and I could see the wheels turning. Her husband was working tomorrow. I knew that without her answer, and her kid needed to get back to school. She didn't answer the question, but a sort of crooked smile appeared on her face, and I wondered how to contact her again. But giving her my phone number was obviously a bad idea, and she didn't offer me hers, so I simply said, "I'll be here for lunch tomorrow at noon. If you come, maybe we can have some fun." She still didn't say anything back, and then the waitress brought her takeout order. She paid and left, but not before bestowing a huge smile on me. I knew how she felt about it. "You know, you shouldn't chase your married tail," the waitress told me as the woman walked away. "It never leads to good things." The waitress didn't smile. "Well, I didn't see a decent opportunity to flirt with you. I thought that might disarm her." "It won't do you any good, honey. I'm married too," she said. "I just can't wear rings to work. That's all." I finished my lunch, got in my car, and headed back to my cabin. It wasn't very big, and yes, there was still no electricity, but it had the original fireplace, a big one, and a modern wood stove, so I wasn't going to freeze. And about the woman, whose name I never learned, I just made up a ruse to flirt. Yeah, I know I'm a jerk. I'm an experienced flirt, and the ladies usually respond. Yes, I get turned down a lot too. But then again, I also have a lot of fun with girls, and I've lost count of how many different women I've used, over 200. I've had one girl for a long time, but hell, I didn't want to commit. Women were just easy, and I'm good enough in bed to back up my promises. Let's face it, if I bring a woman to this cabin, especially in the winter, yeah, I'm gonna have a blast. It's an old rustic cabin that I bought a couple years ago and renovated. I didn't install a high-end kitchen or anything like that in here, but the cleanliness and vintage stuff is what it takes to seduce a woman. The handmade log frame bed and second fireplace in the bedroom created a place where no woman would say no if she ever crossed the threshold of this house. So, would this woman say yes? I figured the odds of her showing up tomorrow were at least 50/50ths. I was chipper and decided to take matters into my own hands to make sure, so to speak, that I wouldn't be too chipper tomorrow if she showed up there. There wasn't much need to clean the cabin, mostly because I never made a big mess. In the morning, I washed the breakfast dishes in warm water heated on the wood stove. My water heater is electric. I had not yet had time to put in new windows, so I closed the shutters to keep warm, for the wind was blowing hard. Then, I sat down to read a book by the light of an oil lamp. Still, I couldn't take my eyes off the woman in the diner. She was clearly not a student, although she dressed like one, and she had the student body that I like so much. She was cute, rather than pretty. A strange way to describe a woman her age, but it was true. I tossed some wood into both fireplaces this morning. I didn't like leaving a fire in the fireplaces while I was gone. But given the possibility that this as yet unnamed girl would be coming back to see me this afternoon, I wanted the place to be warm. So, by the time I left for the wigwam diner, the fire would be smoldering rather than blazing. On the other hand, the wood stove could be full of burning logs right before I left. I wanted the place to be disposable for seduction when I brought her back, if I brought her back. Although truth be told, if she showed up at all, there was little chance she wouldn't consent to intimacy. By this time, the electricity was back on, so I had all the modern conveniences and could take a hot shower rather than washing myself in warm water from a wood stove. Things like being clean, using deodorant, and having clean teeth were integral to successful seduction. All in all, there wasn't much work to be done. Although women just love to watch a muscular man cutting wood for the cabin, I already had about 8 bundles split, stacked, and in various stages of drying in the outside sheds, plus firewood inside for immediate use. When the power came back on, I had time to gather the dirty laundry and run the washing machine, and while it was running, put away the breakfast leftovers and set out the dishes. Other than sticking the laundry in the dryer, I finished up my chores and did some more reading before heading out. I got to the wigwam a few minutes before noon, and it was nearly empty. I guess the lunch crowd doesn't get there until after the clock strikes 12. Mary, the waitress who scolded me yesterday, approached the booth I was occupying and asked if I wanted something to drink while I considered my order. I chose coffee, which I knew was good here, and then she said, "You don't expect Judy to show up, do you?" Well, that was good. Perhaps unwillingly, herself, Mary had given me the name of my supposed conqueror. "I'm being cautiously optimistic," I said. Mary smiled. "You know what happens when you're looking in a pile of firewood, don't you? Sometimes you can stumble upon a snake, or maybe you are the snake." Mary took her time pouring my coffee, probably thinking she needed to wait until Judy showed up to take a double lunch order. But she finally came around. "Have you decided what you want yet, honey?" Judy hadn't shown up yet. It's still cold outside. "How about a bowl of chili?" I asked. "Good choice." A couple of minutes later, she brought me a decent-sized bowl of chili in an old, heavy white bowl with a faded blue ring on the outside and 3 small packets of saltines. It was 12:09 p.m., and Judy still hadn't shown up. Mary noticed me looking at my watch and smiled broadly, delighted at my disappointment. She couldn't pay much attention to me, though, because the diner was starting to fill up fast. Yes, I was disappointed. The chili was good, and since I had already eaten breakfast, it was enough. It should have been enough since Judy never showed up. I put off eating, but by 12:25, it was clear I'd been stood up. Well, maybe stood up isn't quite the right term, since Judy didn't actually say yes. But as I paid the bill and headed for the exit, something that can only be described as a smirk appeared on Mary's face. "Come here." I heard a voice that I thought was directed at me, and I saw Judy standing off to the side as I walked out. "I know too many people here, and I can't let them see me meeting you," she said. I smiled. It must have been a very wide smile. "Where are we going?" I asked. Yesterday, I had suggested she warm up at her house. "Where do you live?" "We're not going to my house, that's for sure. I have a cabin on Highway 52, I told her. "It's hard to see my dwelling from the road." "Come on, my truck's over there." "No, I'll follow you. I'm not stupid enough to leave my car here and follow a guy I don't know." "Yeah, But you're stupid enough to go to his cabin, aren't you? I thought, of course, without saying it out loud. Okay, follow me. I'm about 4 miles down Highway 52, on the right. The road there is winding, clinging to the mountainside, and I drove slower than usual, trying not to lose her. Pulling up to my driveway, I stopped far enough so Judy could pull in too, and then got out of the car. My cabin is only a couple 100 yards up. You can't see it from the road. Can your car make it over the rise? Or do you want to park here and come with me? Judy looked at the road. I think I'd better park here. It looks like it will be a bit of an icy and snowy road for my car. With those words, she drove a little further to be away from 52, parked, and climbed into my truck. All the way to my cabin, we drove in silence. When I opened the cab door in front of her, letting her get in first, she said, "Wow, this is great. Not at all what I was expecting." What did you expect? A bachelor life with trash to take out and dirty dishes in the sink? Or is that what it usually is, and you're just sprucing things up for me? No, my place is always clean. I hate cleaning, so I do it every day. It only takes a few minutes. If I let this place turn into a disaster, I'd have to spend hours cleaning, and I don't want to do that. Do you have anything to drink here? What would you like? I have coffee, tea, and water. Do you have whiskey? Yeah. I've got a bottle of Jack and some Maker's Mark. Well, hell, Maker's sounds good. I might need it for this. I poured her 2 fingers of bourbon, and we sat down in the living room to talk. It looked like my quick intimacy might not be so quick. Are you okay? I asked. You look like you're not sure about that. God. Am I having an attack of conscience? No, I'm sure. I just need some liquid courage. I haven't laid down in a good way in years. What, your husband doesn't? Oh, he does it a couple times a week. But that's just for him, and it's never worked for me. She drained the double. I finished my drink in 1 gulp, then added, "Come on, let's go to bed and enjoy the evening." I realized what started out as a casual connection was turning into something more complicated. A bad idea, perhaps. Still, she was attractive and seemed interested. Besides, if her husband couldn't meet her needs, that wasn't my concern. I could handle it, so I led her to my bedroom. I added another log to the fireplace, the embers still glowing warmly. I turned to her, pulling her into a kiss. It was clear that she responded eagerly, her arms wrapping around me, pulling me closer. She seemed caught up in the moment, her reactions showing excitement. When I finally pulled away and removed her sweater, I noticed she was close to being fully content. I knelt down, kissing her, and her hands gently guided me closer. Her words were soft and unstructured, almost like incoherent sounds. I stood up, helping her sit on the edge of the bed while continuing to kiss her. The room was warm from the fireplace, and despite the winter chill outside, she seemed comfortable in her socks. After the first moment of intimacy, it took her a little longer to relax, but when she did, I was glad the cabin had thick walls and no neighbors nearby, because she expressed herself openly. I tell you what she said, but it didn't make much sense at the time. I pulled away after a while because she needed to regain her composure. Well, the evening had taken its course. Business, it was time for a change of scenery and some fun. She continued to reach for me, giving me gentle kisses, her hair a mess and her face and body covered in sweat. We lay like that for the better part of an hour, Judy praising my efforts to no end, if you believe her, and I never take everything at face value. She was having the best time of her life with me. She had no idea it could be so, simple. She finally managed to get closer to reason and start talking rationally. Look, Gary, it was wonderful. Amazing. Just wow. But I need to get home and get cleaned up before Steve gets here. She kissed me, and then I asked her if we could get together again. Look, honey, my husband is no fool. You know I want to see you again, but I can't have an open affair. You know I'll just show up when I can. Okay? And please, don't mention anything about this to anyone. That was it. I gave her a ride home. She looked both ways and then quickly handed me the briefcase before getting in the car and driving off. It wasn't that bad. It had been a few days since I'd seen Judy, and I'd stayed away from the local diner, even though there weren't many good places to eat in the area. Anyway, I didn't know how to cook for myself. Since I had enough money to live on and quite a bit stashed away, I didn't need to do anything labor-intensive like work. Although I did have a few acres of land to tend, that meant tending a large vegetable garden, but in the middle of winter that wasn't necessary. I had beef and pork in the freezer, as well as deer meat that I smoked after hunting season last fall. I had DirecTV, satellite TV, and internet, and I got my mail in the mailbox. No one bothered me, and in fact, most people hardly knew I was here. It had only been a few days, and after near-zero temperatures, it was warmer than normal for January. The normal temperature here is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, but it was almost 60, and I was fiddling around outside. It was time to change the oil in my pickup, and there were other things to do at the store. I kept hoping Judy would show up, but like she said, she had to be careful. And while I might have been disappointed, I was never surprised when she didn't show up. Life was good. The sun was shining. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, although it was supposed to rain tomorrow, and I whistled as I worked. Suddenly, I felt a jolt in my chest. When I looked down, I saw an arrow sticking out of me, and I knew from the intense pain that it had hit me in the chest. I knelt down and tried to pull it out, but I was quickly getting weaker, and the pain was getting more and more excruciating. After a couple of seconds, I was already lying on my side and realized I was dying when a man appeared and laughed. That's what you get for your actions. There's no turning back now. Enjoy your last moments.